We close today's program in conversation with the National Co-Chair of Black Women for Positive Change, Dr. Stephanie Myers, on October as Nonviolence Month, and how might I put it, the perennial quest for peace on Earth. Dr. Myers, how are you today?
Okay, very well. Thank you for inviting me on the show.
Good to have you on the program. Tell me about October and this notion of advancing nonviolence through this peace pledge.
Well, this is our 14th annual activity where we have tried to focus on getting America to wake up to the idea that we need to change the culture of violence in our country and the world. We've done this for 14 years. We started off with one day of nonviolence in Washington, D.C. Then it spread to a week to other states. And this year we're having a 1 month initiation of nonviolence all over the country and actually all over the world, because we have partners overseas that are also putting on events. And the whole goal is to help people realize that violence starts at the kitchen table. And we have to change the way people think, the way they act, and get rid of this whole violence epidemic that we're dealing with.
Mm-hmm. A lot easier said than done, obviously. But when you say change the culture of violence in our country, where does one begin in that process?
Where does one begin? With one's family.
Mm-hmm.
One begins with the people in their neighborhood. We have to realize that anger management is real. A lot of times people get into a fight with somebody. They're angry at them. They're having conflicts, and they might even go pick up a gun and shoot them over anger. So we have to teach our children and our adults that you can disagree without it turning into violence, that there can be conflict. And that's okay. People don't have to agree, but we can't have this people going into the streets and gangs and all kinds of violence taking place over political violence. We just have to really find ways to resolve issues through nonviolence. And that's the purpose of our month. We have some incredible activities, Tavis, activities that people have been putting on all over the country. And your listeners can go to monthofnonviolence.org and they can sign up for free and participate in some of the virtual activities that are very, very informative.
Yep. We'll talk more about some of those activities going on. I'll give you a chance to sort of stretch out on that as we move through this conversation. Before we do that, though, I was on this program some weeks ago and said more than once, after the murder of Charlie Kirk, you heard all these politicians and others professing that advancing this notion that political violence has no place in America. And I had to sort of arrest that, because political violence is in the DNA of America. America started with political violence. And I don't need to unpack all that for you or for the audience who heard me say that a few weeks ago on this program. But my point is that violence is all around us. Political violence ought not be celebrated, but it ain't nothing new. Pardon my English. It ain't nothing new in this country. And from political violence to the violence that we see in media, to the violence that we see in our streets, to the violence that we see at the hands of too many cops beating and maiming and even murdering fellow citizens, violence is a way of life in this country. And so what you're up against is a behemoth. Obviously, it's a tall order to try, as you said earlier, to change the culture of violence. But I wonder who is on your list to be indicted for all the violence that we do, in fact, have to navigate every day in our lives in this country.
Well, our organization, Black Women for Positive Change, which I should mention includes men and people who are not Black and all generations, we're focusing on the fact there were 22,000 homicides in 2023. Mm-hmm. So you say who's indicted? 22,000 homicides. We've had 340 mass shootings this year already. Mm-hmm. That's devastating. And then we find out that 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men experience domestic and physical violence from an intimate partner. An intimate partner, your husband, your wife, members of your family. So when we talk about who do we indict, we have to indict our community. We have to go to the kitchen table. We have to go into the schools. We have to go into the community centers, the sports industry, and we have to help people realize that confrontation and violence is not acceptable. And one of the things about America, Tavis, is that America has shown that it can make major changes. I mean, we went from slavery to freedom. Of course, we're still dealing with a lot of side issues there, I know,
Sure.
but we did go from bondage to being able to be free. Women went from being in the kitchen to now being CEOs of major corporations in America. This country can make change.
Yeah.
We know this. And so we just have to decide that we're going to move forward, and we're going to focus on helping people to internalize the importance of peace. And that's why we're trying to start a movement. We're really anxious, and I'm so pleased to talk with your audience today because we've launched something we call the Peace Pledge. And we're trying to get people to do it. I loved hearing the gentleman you had on talking about Black Poetry Day, because if we could get our poets, our musicians, our rappers, our ministers, all of the people who inspire people in the country to take the Peace Pledge. And then I'd love to read it to you, or we can do it at some other time, or people can see it on the web. But we're getting people like Mayor Chanel Parker of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She did the Peace Pledge. And we have people around the country and around the world who are taking this oath to promote peace.
Yep. I've got more questions, but since you're there, no sense in waiting. I have it in front of me myself here in the studio. But go ahead and read the nonviolence peace pledge. Nonviolence peace pledge.
But I'd love for you to read it, Tavis.
I'd be happy to. I can read. I love I love the book that my friend Vernon Jordan, the late great Vernon Jordan. I love Vernon's book. I love Vernon Jordan. I missed Vernon Jordan. But his book was titled "Vernon Can Read." I never forget that title. Love it. A great book. And if you never read Vernon Jordan's memoir, it's an amazing read. Vernon Jordan had an amazing life, and I love that title. Vernon can read, but so can Tavis. This is the Nonviolence Peace Pledge. I pledge to uphold peace in the name of nonviolence and to work to keep my brothers and sisters safe. I promise to seek the path of peace and to treat others with fairness and respect. I pledge to do this for the sake of humanity so we can all live together in peace and harmony. So there is the language of the Nonviolence Peace Pledge. Tell me more about how you're getting people to take the pledge.
Well, we're putting these pledges, and we're going to put your voice up on TikTok. And we know that TikTok has how many million viewers? We are going on Instagram, Facebook. We want to use social media because we have to reach our young people. They are our future. And so many of our young people, Tavis, they're so depressed right now. We're experiencing a high rate in youth suicide. That's just unacceptable. We're finding that Black children, Black teenagers are committing suicide at a higher rate than we've ever had before. So parents and relatives, we need to sit down with our young people and find out what's on their mind. Because Tavis, what we know is that artificial intelligence, and I should say that this month of nonviolence is called the Month of Nonviolence, Families, and Understanding Artificial Intelligence. Because we know that artificial intelligence is playing a role in people's lives. We have young people going online now talking to artificial intelligence through some type of mechanism, and this artificial intelligence is advising them on what to do. And we've even heard situations where young people have been advised to commit suicide by AI. So this is a subject that we have to focus on. And on Saturday, October 18th, we're going to have a workshop with people that are going to be experts that talk about artificial intelligence. And we invite your audience to participate because this is something that people are kind of ignoring, and we can't ignore it because the kids are on top of it. Yeah. We have Adam Clayton Powell III, the son of one of the most famous Black men in America, is going to be on our panel talking about what's next with artificial intelligence. And we have to talk about, will AI play a role in violence? And it really is already involved with the military. I went to a conference in Washington a few weeks ago, and they had AI all over the convention center talking about how they're handling drones and weapons and war. So AI is already in the violence world, and our community needs to understand how this is working so they can sign up for this AI conference and learn about how to protect themselves and their families.
You made a point moments ago about this country being capable of major changes when we want to. Indeed, that is true. So this issue of nonviolence and arresting it, changing the culture, is not a skill problem. It's a will problem. It's not a skill issue. It's a will issue. And so I want to ask Dr. Myers when we come forward why she thinks we have not had the will to change the culture of violence in this country. Why not on this issue? When, to her point, on so many other issues, we have, in fact, as Americans, made major changes. We'll get an answer to that question when we come forward on Tavis Smiley. We are indeed with the national co-chair of Black Women for Positive Change, Dr. Stephanie Myers, talking about October as Nonviolence Month, talking about their Nonviolence Peace Pledge, talking about how we change the culture of violence in this country. So you heard me say a moment ago, Dr. Myers, this is to my mind, and I think you agree with me, not a skill problem, but a will problem. In America, we have challenged and championed major changes in this country. Why not on this issue? Why not on the issue of violence?
Well, as you said, it's a will issue, and that's really a good way of putting it. The country was born into violence, and I know, Tavis, you've talked about this with many of your guests. We certainly started off with the whole genocide against Native Americans, and then our ancestors brought here in slavery and forced to stay in slavery using violence. And then the Europeans during the 1700s coming in here as indentured servants, and they started to make them police officers and firemen and slave catchers. So we started this country with violence as a part of the landscape, and we've grown into films, movies, television programs. You can watch TV from 8 o'clock at night until 11 and see how many shootings and how many murders. I mean, it goes on every night. Our very popular film industry has made violence kind of glorified. So this is what we have to change. We have to take the images and change them and say to young people and to the country, we cannot glorify and celebrate a behavior that results in thousands and thousands of people losing their lives. And this has to be a matter of will. Now, there are organizations that are certainly primed to move forward with this. Everytown for Gun Safety, the World Conference of Mayors. These are people that we're partnering with. Mayor Muriel Bowser. Out in Los Angeles, there will be events the end of the month here. Over in parts of LA, we've got organizations that are going to build bridges between the Black community and the Hispanic community, and talking about how Black and Latino solidarity, the Positive Results Center, October 25th in Los Angeles. That will be an event. And so the community groups are the key. We have to work at the grassroots level. We have to have leaders like you, and you're now a good brother, Tavis, in our group. We call our men our good brothers because you took the peace pledge.
I accept. Yeah.
That's beautiful. But we need people like you in the media who have this kind of power, and that can make the difference. We can do it. I believe we can do it because America has done incredible things, but we have to want to, and we have to stop celebrating guns and celebrating violence because it's our children who are the ones that are getting killed. We have a gentleman in Detroit, Michigan, who's going to be putting on an event with the American RAC on conflict resolution. That's going to be October 27th. And he's a real leader, and he's going to be talking about how people can protect weapons in their homes, because a lot of people have guns right in the bedroom. And the kid walks in the bedroom and grabs the gun and shoots his parents or shoots his relatives. Well, this is unacceptable. We can't allow that to happen.
Nope. We cannot allow it to happen. And yet this violence goes unabated in our country. And so I'm delighted to know that Dr. Myers and Black Women for Positive Change are doing their part to turn the tide against the violence that ails us. When we come forward, a remaining question or two for Dr. Stephanie Myers. You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Tavis Smiley, Dr. Stephanie Myers, National Co-Chair of Black Women for Positive Change, talking about October as a month of nonviolence and their nonviolence peace pledge and a great deal more as we do our best to change the culture, to turn the tide against this violence that is absolutely out of control in our society. I love the appeal that you're making to everyday people, as Sly Stone might say, everyday people. What's your sense of the ways in which our electeds seem not to get this issue of violence, seem not to get the issue of guns, etc., Dr. Myers?
The elected officials really have to be confronted, and we have to hold them accountable because there's a lot of money in violence. Prisons make great profits, and people who sell weapons make profits. And we have to get these elected officials to realize that they cannot accept money from certain sources and then be silent when violence is going on. A lot of the elected officials, like the governor of Pennsylvania, had the man attack his house. A lot of our officials now are being threatened. They're going through a very, very rough time with the government shutdowns and all. So I think that we have to take advantage of this opportunity and to sit down with our leaders and to make sure that they understand there are ways that they can be leaders in making the community safe. Tavis, there's a wonderful tool called the Peace Circle. And the Peace Circle is something, that organization that you just, your public service announcement was so powerful about justice. I'd love to see KBLA promote peace circles where people can sit down and talk about what's on their mind. We had a peace circle at the Biden White House last year with the director of the Office of Violence Prevention. And we had 16 high school students that we took to the White House for this peace circle. And Tavis, would you believe every single one of those kids had either witnessed a violent event involving their family member, themselves, or their neighbors? Every single one of them. Yeah. Everyone was crying before it was all over. So this issue of violence is very close. We had a session the other night with the National Association of Black Nurses, and they were talking about domestic violence. And 3 really talented professional nurses had come out of families that had violence. One girl at the age of 9 years old was trying to beat up her father because he beat up her mother. And she went into juvenile delinquency. But because of mentorship and role models like you and people in these organizations that we're working with, she's about to get her doctorate in nursing. She went from juvenile delinquency to getting a doctorate. So we know change is possible. We just have to get mentorship together. We have to get behind our organizations and our leaders. Jan Perry, who's a former city councilwoman in Los Angeles, is one of our leaders in our organization. My national co-chair with me is Honorable Dawn Hester, who's treasurer of the city of Norfolk, Virginia. She is an elected official, and she's been leader of this effort for 14 years. So we have elected officials who know how to do the right thing. And of course, Janelle Parker, as I mentioned, and I also encourage people to go on TikTok. See Mayor Janelle Parker. We're going to have Tavis Smiley's Peace Pledge up there very soon, but you can go to TikTok.com, Black Women for Pause Change, and you can hear the TikToks.
I'm sorry, not to cut you off. It is the 14th annual month of nonviolence, families, understanding artificial intelligence, sponsored by Black Women for Positive Change Foundation, and Everytown for Gun Safety. I am pleased to have had in conversation for the last 30 minutes the national co-chair of Black Women for Positive Change, Dr. Stephanie Myers. Appreciate your work and witness, Dr. Myers. Good to have you on this program. All the best to you.
Well, thank you very much, and I hope people come to the AI Frontier Conference on October 18th.